Okay, now to the final part of comparing resumes featuring GSP versus Islam Makhachev. In my first two installments, I showed why Hughes is a better win than Volk because of the fact that Hughes proved himself at welterweight, whereas Volk at lightweight, just no good top 5, and how Bisping's better than JDM because he has a better resume than JDM. But now I'm going to compare their best wins. GSP's best win, which is against BJ Penn, and Islam's best win, which is against Charles Oliveira. Here I'm going to compare BJ Penn's best wins versus, in my opinion, Charles Oliveira's best wins. Matt Hughes versus Dustin Poirier. Matt Hughes had many defenses, but he's mostly a quantity guy. To win the belt, he beat Carlos Newton, who was basically a one-fight wonder who choked out Pat Miletich. He beat GSP, who was a pre-prime guy who was 7-0 overall, 2 fights in the UFC. He was rushed too soon. He beat BJ Penn, I think his best win. Beat undefeated Sean Shirk. Then lost to BJ Penn. Dustin Poirier, though never a champion like Matt Hughes, best wins are elite Max Holloway, not all time, because Max Holloway was new to the weight class at lightweight, didn't prove himself then. Dustin Poirier beat Justin Gaethje when he was in his early days. Still a young guy who just came off under Michael Johnson his debut, but then he was rushed to Poirier. And Poirier beat Conor McGregor, who I think his best days are behind him since taking that layoff from the Eddie Alvarez-Khabib fight. Not the same fighter because of the fact that Conor McGregor took 23 months off, made lots of money from a boxing match, no longer the broke kid from Ireland. I feel like after the Alvarez fight, taking that 2-year layoff, fighting Khabib, he's not the same guy anymore. And of course, Poirier beat Dan Hooker. Pretty fun fight. So this one is kind of tough for me, but I'd edge out Poirier because of the better quality. Now, Sean the Muscle Shark Shirk versus Justin Gaethje. I'm probably going to go with Justin Gaethje too as well, because though he hasn't been an undisputed champ like Sean Shirk has, I think he has the better overall resume than Sean Shirk. Now you go with Diego Sanchez versus Michael Chandler. Okay, going to the Charles Oliveira fight, who did Chandler beat? Just Dan Hooker. And then rush to Charles Oliveira. Diego Sanchez was on like, 5-6 fight win streak, coming off that war against Clay Guida, a very good version of Clay Guida, on a better momentum, done more in the UFC than Michael Chandler has. So Diego Sanchez is a better one for BJ Penn than Chandler is to Oliveira. Now for the next part. Ken Flo Florian, BJ specialist versus Mateusz Gamrot, a wrestler. Let's look at Kenny Florian's resume before the BJ Penn fight. Beat Joe Stevenson, Joe Lozon, Dean Thomas. Was on a 6-fight win streak going to the BJ Penn fight. Now let's go with Mateusz Gamrot. Older man, yes, beat Arman Sarukian, but beat guys like Jalen Turner, who's Fiziev, come on, that wasn't really a win. Fiziev just broke his knee. RDA, old man. Ludovic Klein, not proven guy. Then lost to Charles Oliveira, and it was on short notice. So going back to this, I'm going to go with a younger guy in his prime, Kenny Florian, over Mateusz Gamrot that Charles beat. Then we have Joe Stevenson versus Clay Guida. Clay Guida was towards the tail end of his career when he fought Charles Oliveira. Stevenson was kind of in his prime on a big win streak. So give me Stevenson. Pulver versus Ferguson. That is a fight between two guys clearly out of their primes. Ferguson had his soul taken away from Justin Gaethje, and Pulver was coming off a knockout loss against Joe Lozon, and both men were outside their prime. I'm going to have to edge Pulver here because he's a younger guy, and if you look at Oliveira versus Ferguson, Ferguson looked like he had nothing to do on the table, or at least Pulver looked good before he got submitted by BJ Penn. So give me Pulver over Ferguson. Now, if you look at their resumes, you can argue that the first 2 wins of Charles Oliveira are better than the first 2 wins of BJ Penn. But if you keep going further down the ladder, starting with Sanchez versus Chandler, BJ Penn's resume is better. So this one, in my opinion, is a close one. However, I would edge it to BJ Penn because, yes, you could argue that Charles' 2 best wins are better than BJ Penn's 2 best wins. But if you keep going down the ladder, starting off with Diego Sanchez versus Michael Chandler, I would give that to Diego Sanchez, who's done more in the UFC than Michael Chandler has. And keep going down and down and down, comparing Florian, Stevenson, better than any other Charles win. However, I could see people saying that Charles is a better win for Islam than Penn is better for GSP. However, you still have 2-1 GSP. And if you want to go further down the ladder comparing wins, Islam beat Poirier, who you can maybe argue is better than his other wins, such as Jake Shields, John Fitch, Johnny Hendricks. But you want to go further down the ladder and compare, say, Thiago Moises with GSP's other good wins, such as Koscheck, Alves, Shields, or Drew Dober, or Bobby Green. GSP's is miles better. So if you want to compare their wins side by side, more points favor GSP. So yes, I argue that GSP has the better resume than Islam Makhachev. Let me know what you guys think.